and welcome back to The Rack right here on WildTalkRadio.com, brought to you by our friends over at Wrestling Figure Photography. Follow the journey today at Instagram.com/MBG1211, and well, if you're listening to us over at Gerwick.net, RackRadioShow.com, or WildTalkRadio.com, thank you so much for tuning in. If you get a quick second, check out the fine folks over at FightBoot.com because they're posting amazing things, like what we're about to do, because joining us right now is one of our favorite people and the author of the new book, Second Nature, best-selling author Brian Shields. How are you doing today?
Hi, guys. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be here.
We are super excited because it's been a long time.
It has. It definitely has. Too long.
Yes, too long. We need to have you on more often.
I'm all in.
All right. So, let's get the business out of the way. We're talking to you about your brand new book, The Fabulous Page Turner, Second Nature, about Charlotte and Ric Flair. Everybody, you have to pick this up. It's fabulous.
Well, look, thank you so much. I mean, this is just such an exciting time. You know, Second Nature comes out September 19th, and it's the most amazing thing that I've ever been able to be a part of during my career. And I couldn't be more proud of the book, having the honor to work with the Nature Boy and Charlotte. And I can't wait for people to be able to read it and enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I personally enjoyed was you captured both their voices so well.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you could definitely see the difference between Rick and Charlotte, because obviously they're two very different people, and I feel like you captured their voices and what they were trying to get across and their stories really, really, really well.
Well, thank you. I mean, that was one of those things where I knew going into it that would be a creative challenge, but this was such a collaborative team effort between the three of us that I knew very early on that it was something I had to be mindful of because they are two different people, but it was something that I became comfortable doing and working within as time went on, and I got to just continue working and collaborating with them.
And how did this even kind of come about? Who had this idea? Was this your idea, or was this WWE's idea? Who kind of came up with the notion of doing a dual memoir with Charlotte and Ric Flair?
Well, the idea to do a book with Rick and Charlotte, that was something that was put together with WWE and Rick's management and Charlotte. I was asked to put together a concept based on that premise. I was told that there was going to be a dual biography, and that I would have the opportunity to speak with them about the concept. So I just started, I kick it old school. So I write everything on paper first. There are notebooks all over the place. So I just started brainstorming different ideas and different concepts on what I think the book could be. And that was kind of the general frame. And then, working with them, that's when we really filled everything in. And it was really, I cannot emphasize this enough. It was such a collaborative process that it was, to have that as a writer is an incredible gift.
Oh, it bet. Because, you got to sit down and speak with them. And I read Charlotte's dedication, and where she was saying, you worked around her crazy schedule, you worked nights, you were pretty much available whenever she was available to take down her stories and also Rick's stories. So, was the schedule a challenge? It wasn't
a challenge. First of all, Charlotte and Rick are very kind in terms of making sure that they mention my part in the book. But, this was them. It was their story together. And, as far as the schedule goes, I've been working with WWE in some form or fashion for 19 years. So, for me, I love the, there's no off season and you're kind of always going. Then again, I'm not the one working in a ring, so it's easy for me to say, but, I didn't find it challenging at all. Guys, when you're working on a project like this, which is so labor intensive, you get into a different zone, a different frame of mind, and you just keep going. And, the three of us worked on this for a little over a year and a half.
Wow.
And countless phone calls with that I had with both of them, several in-person meetings, text messages, emails. I mean, you name it. The only thing we didn't use was Morse code and the bat signal.
That would have been awesome.
It would have been awesome. But really, it was just one of those things where, when you start working with this type of project, everybody is just so motivated to get it done and get it done properly. And that's one of the things right away that Rick and Charlotte told me was, we want this book to be true. We want this to be the real story, the ups, the downs, all of it. And that right away helped me frame what we were doing.
I can respect that. Yeah. And you speak of the downs. Were some of the downs difficult to handle? Because I know it talks about Reed's death and it talks about Charlotte's first marriage where she was in an abusive relationship. Was that difficult to, obviously it had to be difficult to hear, I'm sure, but also just to write and to turn into a story?
It was, because I can't say this enough, this is real. This is the real story about, picking up where Ric Flair's career, in 2007 when, so basically readers are with him from the moment he's in that ring in Charlotte in November 2007, and Vince McMahon establishes that the next match he loses, his career is over. So the readers right there pick up where Rick is in his career at that time. You're going with him through that night, his matches between then and WrestleMania, going into the Hall of Fame. So, that was the thing, was that it was, the difficult parts of the book that they both share were difficult just because, they're wonderful people and you're hearing what they went through. But at the same time, I think it was a little easier for me knowing how they came out of it so well on the other side, so that it was that made it a little bit easier. But yeah, for sure. We're talking about some very personal things in this book for both Rick and Charlotte. Rick talks about his bouts at time with self-confidence issues, dealing with his retirement, being torn about his retirement, the problems and some of the things that he suffered through during his last two marriages, and then with, as you mentioned, Lindsay, Reed's passing, and then the intimate things that Charlotte shares. It's definitely it's definitely a lot.
It really is. And you and I were talking the other day before this interview, and we talked about how, Ric Flair's retirement was key for his section of the book. And we all heard the story and saw the story take place on TV. And then you got to hear it from him. And then going back now, watching it again on the network, the WWE network, it gives you a different perspective of what he was actually going through. And it's sort of like, what to you, how did you see it differently after hearing the story from him?
Well, and I think that's the unique thing about the book, guys, is that the reader here is being taken through their life through their eyes. So, hearing these things from Rick personally and really getting to see, which is why speaking to somebody and meeting with them in person is so important, because you sense that emotion from them. You see the expressions on their face, the tones of their voices when they're talking about these things. And, people, and he said this in the book, people had no idea just how real the words he was saying during many of his interview segments were No one had any idea, and not even his family, not even, his wife at the time, but, no one knew just how much all of this meant to him and how torn he was about actually, doing it.
Yeah, and you could see it on his face, but now you're actually hearing his side of the story. It's like, wow, that's incredible, the realness of it. And it transformed you saw it transpire on TV, and I was like, that is real. And that's what hooks you, and that's what hooks you into this book, because it feels authentic, it feels real. You're not getting some ghostwriter telling, his side of the story. You're actually hearing the real story. I like the part in the book where it's like, they're telling about the storyline, the direction they're going for his retirement, and they told him one thing not to do, and it was tell Sean. He called
Right.
Sean. That was the first thing he did, was call Sean.
Well, and even something like that, I mean, it meant so much to him. And, he's talked about this over the years, and it's in the book. He holds the McMahon family and Triple H and all of WWE in such a high regard because of how they've honored his career and have held his career in such rarefied air. So all of these things, I mean, to have Shawn Michaels be the opponent was just unbelievable for him. And, I enjoyed also learning that he was, supposed to be on the main card for WrestleMania 23. And, I don't want to ruin anything for your audience, so I'm just going to say, we talk about that too. There was something that Rick did during an interview segment that was so well received that it ended up changing his creative direction on television, that ended up keeping him off of the WrestleMania 23 main card. So you hear those types of things as well. I mean, it's just an incredible story of two people who, by the way, you will also understand and learn about how close Rick is not only to Charlotte, but to all of his children. I mean, we've always heard, the, kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing, nature boy. But the other side to that is this incredibly loving, devoted father. And you learn about their ups and downs in their relationship as well.
Yeah, you really get a sense of how good their relationship was, and then there was a period in time through one of Rick's divorces where their relationship sort of was really strained, and you get a good perspective from both sides, I guess is the best way to put it, since it's a dual biography type thing. You get both sides of the story and how it all transpired, but at the end of the day, he was always there for his children, which is great to see and read. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and especially, when you talk about being in an industry that has no off season, you're on the road more than 300 days a year. I mean, it's incredible to be able to continue that relationship and connection with your kids. But guys, just to further illustrate my point, he's also very candid about how his two older children, Megan and David, did not have that growing up when he was the NWA World Champion, and that he would see them maybe 7 to 10 times a year, and how that was kind of a learning, a learning experience for him, and how grateful he was later on to be home so much for Charlotte and Reed. So, there are so many different things that are discussed in quite candid detail in the book, which is why I think so many different types of people are going to enjoy reading it.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, because I think, for me, it's like you mentioned, all we see is the Ric Flair that we see on TV. The wheeling, dealing, kiss stealing son of a gun. And it's like, Brock and I have this conversation offline a lot, where it's like, I think a lot of fans, and even we forget it, I think everybody forgets it, that wrestlers are people too. And what you see on TV isn't what you get, in real life. That's not who he is in real life. He's somebody completely different, when he goes home to his wife and his children. So it was really refreshing and cool to see those candid stories in there of him talking about his wives and his children and his relationship with all of them, and how he kind of grew as a person from his older children to his younger children, and how he made that effort to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and even the decision that he made to give his Hall of Fame speech as the man, Richard Flair, and not the Nature Boy. I mean, those were, that's what I mean. Like, there are so many things that people are going to learn in this book that I cannot wait for fans of all ages to be able to open it up and learn about them.
So I have to know, do you have like a favorite story that made it into the book? Because I'm sure there were many that didn't, but do you have a favorite one that made it in?
Oh, wow. There really are so many. I mean, see, on Charlotte's side, you're getting her entire life story.
Right.
So I was just fascinated by the portraits that she was painting of her life and what she wrote about. I mean, she has countless journal entries, and the writing that she did was unbelievable for the project. Hearing her experiences growing up in Charlotte with Ric Flair as her father, not really knowing just how important or how famous he was. And, she really had no desire to get into wrestling. She was a very high level gymnast. She was also a top ranking cheerleader. They toured nationally and internationally, and then she was an NCAA Division I volleyball player. So the one story for her early on that sticks out for me is they love movies in the Flair house, and the story of her waiting for her dad to come home, and he was gone a little longer than usual. They were waiting to see Jurassic Park, the movie, when it came out. And Rick and Arn Anderson that weekend were squaring off against the Hollywood Blondes, one of my favorite tag teams of all time, Stunning Steve Austin and Brian Pillman. So those kinds of, there are so many stories like that. I mean, Charlotte and Reed meeting Michael Jordan, and thinking nothing of it. They just thought he was a very nice man who was friends with their dad. So those are some of the things, early in her chapters, that really stood out for me just because I was fascinated by that. And for, on Rick's side, I love there's a story in there because, guys, the book is the legacy of Ric Flair. So even though the story picks up in November of 2007, people are going to have the opportunity to learn about all different parts of the Nature Boy's life and his career. So I think, to me, there's a great story of when he was a kid, and he hitchhiked his way from Minnesota to Florida so he could go to spring break with a friend. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
It's such a him thing to do, too.
It is. That's and he talks about that as well. Like this has always been me. I've always had an appreciation for, the finer things in life, nice suits, nice cars, nice watches. He talks about, that possibly, going to a private boarding school and being around kids that really grew up in very wealthy families, could have contributed to that. But that's what I mean, that there's a level of candor and detail in Second Nature that I think people are really going to enjoy.
Things you mentioned about, this is a book for all ages. When you get to Charlotte's chapters of the book, her section basically, you really get to see a brother and sister really great dynamic. And that was something that really came across in this book. Are you happy with how that dynamic was delivered?
Yes. Yes, because it was all, Charlotte. I mean, it was all her, sharing the intimate details of her life. And, and one of the many highlights for me in being able to work with the Flairs on this book is learning about how much of an amazing person Ric Flair was, and how devoted to his family he was, and how much he loved his family, how great of a friend he was to those who he was friends with, sticking up for kids in school that would get picked on. But then there were some great stories as well. I mean, he had a great sense of humor. And one of the stories that I enjoyed involving Reed was that there was a summer where he was teaching kids at their country club how to play different sports, and started taking those kids after those practice sessions to the club restaurant for lunch. And Charlotte's parents opened up in the mail a very large bill from the country club. They had no idea who spent that amount of money, how that amount was even reached. Just great stuff, really learning about the person that Ric Flair was and how beloved he was by all who knew him.
Yeah, and it really came across that way, that it was such an unfortunate tragedy what happened with him, as you find out, the struggles he had and everything Ric Flair did for him to make sure he got back on track. And it was unfortunate what happened. By the way, for those tuning in, this is The Rack live right here on the Wild Talk Radio Network. At the end of this interview, we will tell you how you can win a copy of this book signed by Ric Flair and Charlotte Flair. We'll tell you about that at the end. One subject that was interesting that you touched upon in this book, TNA wrestling. That was that seems like that's a first for a WWE book.
Well, guys, I have to tell you, with all the years that I've been working with WWE, there has never been a subject that I was told could not be part of a book, not to talk about, not to ask about. And again, going back to this, the stuff with WWE has always been, if it's true, if it's accurate, if it's right, and if it's truly part of the story, then put it in. And, that was a part of Rick's career, and he talks about it. You hear from Shawn Michaels and his thought on that whole time period. You learn about how Rick really agonized over whether or not to make the move to TNA wrestling. And even though that is a relatively small part of his, now more than 40 plus year career, it was very important, and it had to be, it had to be in there. So, yeah.
Now, I want to transition a little bit away from wrestling because, well, I shouldn't say away from wrestling. We're still going to stay in wrestling. Let's transition away from the book for a second because I have to ask this question because Charlotte has been heavily featured in the Mae Young Classic, which, as we're doing this interview, is getting ready to air.
Yes.
Has not aired yet. And so I have to know, who do you have?
If there's
to win it all.
If there's a 4-on-4, to win it all. I'm sorry, I thought I was jumping ahead to the 4-on-4.
We'll get to that. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
I think I don't. It's tough not to pick Shayna Baszler.
I can see that. She's.
Guys, here's the thing. You're talking about somebody who has an incredible mixed martial arts background. She was trained by Billy Robinson for wrestling. This is someone who is incredibly accomplished, incredibly versatile, and I think, to me, one of the toughest competitors to set foot in a ring, male or female. But I think it's going to be a very, very close match. It's not going to be, a couple of minutes and that's going to be it. I think it's going to be a battle.
I would agree with that. Just watching Shayna through the entire tournament and watching her matches progressively get better, especially the last one that she had with Mercedes Martinez, which was just fantastic. I see nothing but good things with her.
Yeah. I mean, and she has a poise in the ring. I think she's very comfortable in the ring, and I think she's somebody who, you can hear the announcers say, has a high ring IQ, knows every square inch of the ring. I mean, it's this is just my opinion. I mean, this is just the beginning for her.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that 110% because she has this just quality about her, and this, like you said, in the effortlessness of the way that she just kind of goes out there and she's just like, yeah, okay, whatever, I'm not impressed. And then she does what she does. And she is impressive. I think I could definitely see her taking it all. And now we're going to jump to the 4-on-4. Okay. So to me, this is huge for not only WWE, but also women's wrestling in general. Because I feel like it's taking the whole women's revolution to that next step by adding the household names of, the 4 horsewomen versus the 4 horsewomen. Mm-hmm. And making this into something just huge. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but nothing like this has ever been done in women's wrestling in WWE before, correct?
Well, correct. But I want to add to that, again, male or female. I mean, there's never been 4 mixed martial artists to be in a group and, have a standoff with 4 WWE superstars.
It's something unique. It's something different. And we've had mainstream things in the years with a variety of different celebrities and whatever. But now you have someone who's a legitimate sports athlete in Ronda Rousey, who's possibly coming to WWE. And she's such a huge mainstream star just outside of the UFC, outside of mixed martial arts. This will take whatever the women's evolution has been. It will take it mainstream. And this will open the doors for everybody.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, with Ronda Rousey, guys, let's remember, she's an Olympian.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think, was a silver or bronze medalist in judo. I mean, you're talking about somebody who's incredibly accomplished. And I think the appeal that she has, I think this is a great time for it. And I think even just the timing of the Mae Young Classic is perfect. I think the women's division needed it to be right now. And I think whatever's going to happen down the road, there's great talent that competed in this tournament, and this 4-on-4 matchup, I mean, can go in so many exciting directions, and then you can break off into different smaller tag team or individual one-on-one matchups from there. It's very, very exciting.
If you want to make history, and there's no disrespect to any of the women on the main roster, Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey would main event a WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
If they want to accomplish that goal, to set it as we can do it, there's your mainstream star, there's your wrestling star, there's your headlines. That would close your show because it would get people talking.
I agree. I mean, and you're talking about 2 huge names in their respective areas that, I mean, we know that Charlotte Flair can deliver, and, I mean, Second Nature the bookend is WrestleMania 32. I mean, she delivers and gets better when the lights are shining at their brightest. So, a big name competitor like Ronda Rousey is a phenomenal matchup. But let's also be very clear that in the WWE arena, Charlotte Flair is quite the opponent for Ronda Rousey as well.
Oh, without question.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that as well. Just because it's the natural athleticism of the two. I'm excited for it, honestly. I'm excited for the 4-on-4. I'm excited for the tag teams. I'm excited for all of it. Like, they announced that, or they just kind of teased it, and I was sitting there watching the Mae Young Classic, and I just went, yes.
Yeah.
All of that.
I loved how it was done. And guys, we've talked about this before, both on and off air. It's so difficult today with the internet and social media, and this is not anything new. But just as a reminder, it's so difficult today to keep things under wraps, or just to, do things in such a way where either it hasn't been done before or it doesn't resemble something else. And, the way that this has been presented, and I know it's very early, but the way that this has been presented has been great. And it's just going to get better. I mean, it's just going to get more exciting. It's only September. I mean, think about it that way.
I think the best things in wrestling are the things that you have to wait for, because that anticipation builds. And part of the problem sometimes is everybody wants it like now. And I'm guilty of that. Rock's guilty of that. We're all guilty of that, because it's like we see something happen or we hear about something and it's like, yes, no, I want this now. I want this right now. I want to see it. And there's no anticipation. There's no build to it. So the fact that they're just teasing it, on the Mae Young Classic, they're kind of putting little ticklers out, about it. They're having them talk smack to each other. Starts to build that towards Mania, and it just kind of gets really more exciting the longer it takes, because you're like, well, when are they going to get together again? When are they going to do something else? You want it more because you can't have it.
Well, I completely agree, and and I know that sometimes I'm guilty of that as well, that instant gratification, but I mean, the other thing too, guys, is, everybody knows who Ronda Rousey is. The other three horsewomen, they're going to be members of the WWE universe who need to do their homework and know how accomplished these other three women are. I mean, Shayna Baszler is getting that recognition now. But I mean, it's just very, very exciting. And when you think about just how this can all play out. I mean, in the end, Lindsay, like you said, it's great for the fans. It's great for the women's division. I mean, how do you not love it?
I mean, and another thing that they've kind of built the anticipation for, moving away from the women's revolution, is Braun Strowman versus Brock Lesnar. The accidental match that I don't think anybody ever expected to really get as big as it did, but it did, is coming. Are you looking forward to that?
Oh, God, absolutely. I mean, what's amazing to me is if you look back, I mean, you heard all these supposed big plans for everybody else in the Wyatt family but Braun Strowman. I mean, in the beginning, and what he has done in his time in WWE is phenomenal. And I do want to point out, I think Brock Lesnar is doing some of his best work right now.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
I think, guys, what I've noticed just as a fan is, Brock Lesnar performs at a different level and does things with his character a little differently. I think when he has a certain almost respect for whether it's the physical power or the aura of the person that he's standing across the ring from. And for me, I think you saw that when Goldberg came back last year. Everybody talked about how quickly the match went and the spear and the jackhammer. And yes, that was very cool and very impressive. My favorite part of that match, to me, besides the stare down, was when Goldberg shoves Brock to the mat, and that extra second Brock Lesnar looks at Paul Heyman and the look on Brock Lesnar's face.
Sort of the same look you saw on Monday Night Raw.
Right. That made it. And that made it real. It put Goldberg back on the map. And I really do. I think when he feels a certain way about an opponent, whether it's their athletic background, their physical strength or prowess, or the persona of their character, I think that's when he's really, really at his best. And, the stuff that they're doing now, what we saw last night on Raw, I thought it was awesome. And Braun Strowman, I mean, you want to talk about someone who is just getting started.
Oh, God.
I mean, it's, and I'm going to show my age here, but, when Braun just got up after that German suplex, that reminded me when I was a kid and somebody would give a pile driver to Road Warrior Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawk would just roll over and stand up and he would usually hit that great pose and then, take someone's head off with a clothesline.
It's like, what else you got?
Yeah, God, Braun Strowman, was he 6'8", 380 pounds?
He's built as a brick house. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and look at how the guy moves around the ring. His quickness, his agility. I mean, last night he's trading drop kicks with John Cena. Like, this is an incredible athlete.
And what you've seen with him is he came up to the main roster and he came up like really quickly. Like I think he was at the Performance Center less than a year when they called him up, because it was one of those, hey, we just need a guy sort of things, because one of the Wyatt family members got hurt. So you saw him from there to where he is now, and just the improvement is night and day. I mean, you can tell he's really buckled down, and he's really made an effort to get better and get stronger and get faster. And if he just continues to do that, there's no limit to what he can do.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And, guys, one of the other things that I always appreciate is when someone is having good matches with opponents of all different sizes, shapes, skill sets. And, he's been doing that. I mean, no matter who he's in there with, the stuff has been very, very exciting.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, at least for me, it was, I believe, the first time he and Brock kind of sort of met, and Brock's looking him over, looking him up and down, and Brock's going, yeah, you and I could have some fun.
Yeah.
It was that moment that you're just like, yes, do it. Do the thing. Please book it. Please do it. And they did the 4-way, and we got the tease of it, and Braun Strowman just went to town on everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been all systems go from there. I mean, there haven't been too many things. I can't even think of anything off the top of my head that I've seen that Braun Strowman is a part of that I have not been into and really excited about. I mean, the match with Brock Lesnar, very similar, though different, similar in principle to Brock's match with Samoa Joe, where to me, I just feel like, God, I hope there's a trilogy of matches with these guys. Mm-hmm. And, with Braun Strowman, it's going to be really, really exciting looking at what he's going to do the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. For Brock and Joe, I want them to go like one more time, and I want them to go a little bit longer than what they did the last time they fought, because I feel like they got a little shortchanged, and they weren't able to quite get to that next gear before it was over. So I just want them to get just a little bit longer, just to really sort of step that up, because I feel like Joe was another one where Brock went, yeah, we can do this, we can have fun at it.
Absolutely.
And I feel like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm with you. I was just saying, I'm with you 100%. I think that Joe is definitely part of this, this select group for sure.
Yeah, and he's another one that I feel like once he comes back from his unfortunate injury, that he's going to be another one to watch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and if you look at the success of an AJ Styles, of a Samoa Joe, I mean, these are guys. Kevin Owens is another one. I mean, there are certain talent who people waited a very long time and hoped that the day would come that they would perform in WWE. And, since those guys got to WWE, I mean, they've just done phenomenal work. And I know Bobby Roode just got called up to SmackDown, but he's another one. It's like they are completely ready to take this opportunity and just take their career to a new level.
I love Bobby. I love what Bobby's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he took what he was doing in TNA and he just turned up the volume tenfold, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, and because he's again somebody who's so versatile, great in the ring, great on the mic, great look. I mean, he's somebody else that can just turn it up, and he's been doing great things.
Yeah. It's kind of wild. I was talking to Rock about this. It's really kind of wild that Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and Bobby Roode are all there together. And so many others. But it's wild when you actually look who's there right now. It's crazy.
It is. I mean, if you have followed, basically, if you followed wrestling since the close of ECW and WCW, so if you followed wrestling from, like, let's say, winter or spring of 2001 to current day, I mean, it's very exciting to see the names who have come through WWE and what they've accomplished. And, you know, to me, AJ Styles right now is the best wrestler in the world, pound for pound. The matches that he has had since debuting in WWE have been tremendous. And, you know, I mean, he, we watched, SmackDown's on during our conversation. I mean, tonight, I thought he had a heck of a good match with Ty Dillinger. I mean, anybody who he is in the ring with, singles, tag team, you name it. He's just done great stuff.
Oh, yeah. And him and Dillinger had a fantastic match. The series with Kevin Owens, the series with John Cena. And I feel like there's nobody that AJ Styles can have a bad match with. Because he really is that good.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, and he's, it seems to me there are some people who feel like he's at his best right now. So, you know, timing, it may have been a little later than people have wanted, which is just, I think, a testament to AJ Styles and the talent that he is. But the timing has worked out. I mean, the stuff that he's done is great.
I feel like they all, everybody takes a path to get where they want to be, and some people get there quicker than others, and especially for someone like AJ, I feel like him leaving TNA and going to Japan is what he needed to do.
Oh, I agree. I was talking about this at a retro gaming convention that I was speaking at last weekend. Somebody had a Bullet Club shirt on in the audience, and to me, that was a huge turning point for AJ Styles in his career. Leading that group, very high profile group, in Japan, where that kind of stuff gets a lot of attention, in that time where there was really a resurgence in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I mean, absolutely. It was a huge, huge turning point, and I think it helped him get ready to be the main player that he is in WWE right now.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Because, I mean, for what he got to do for TNA, it was like that was great. Not discounting anything he did in TNA, but I feel like if he had gone right from TNA to WWE, that he maybe wouldn't, it would have taken him just a little bit longer to get where on the level that he is now. So it's like going over there took him to that next level.
I agree. And I think it might have been the Jericho podcast, one of the interviews that he's done, and I've really enjoyed his interviews. It might even be the Stone Cold podcast. But he's alluded to that as well.
And it's just, he's not the AJ he was in TNA. He's matured. He's changed. He's more settled. And part of that comes with age and experience, where it's just, he's very secure in who he is. He's very comfortable where he is in his career. And now it's like, I feel like he's doing this for fun and for money. But mainly, yeah. I feel like a lot of these guys now is they can have fun with it.
Yeah, and I think it must have been a big help also, coming in as AJ Styles, having that great reaction at the Royal Rumble. I mean, these are all things along the way that are a big deal for a WWE superstar. So, yeah, I mean, and we've been enjoying it ever since.
Yes, agreed. So, can we convince you to write an AJ Styles book?
Well, that's up to AJ. But I would love to do it. I mean, he's somebody who I've enjoyed his work for many years. I admire him a great deal, and he definitely has, dare I say, a phenomenal story. So, if he's ever interested and ever looking for a writer, I'd love to throw my hat in the ring.
I'll take a ride out to Gainesville, see if I can find him for you.
That sounds good to me.
AJ, I know a guy.
Yeah. Hey, I'll fly down. I went to Atlanta to have great meetings with the Nature Boy, so I can get from New York I fly into Atlanta very quickly.
I was gonna say, were you shocked at the news when he went in the hospital?
Yes. And just thank goodness that he has made it through and that he's recovering. I mean, and I know that everybody has said that, but I just, this is somebody who, even though he's not a WWE superstar anymore and he's not on the main roster every week. I mean, guys, I have to tell you, his appearance schedule, the demand to meet Ric Flair or to have large corporations bring him in and give speeches to their executives or sales and marketing departments is at an all-time high. I mean, he's still on the road. If it's not 300 days a year, it's pretty close.
Yeah, and it's like, it was crazy because he was supposed to be at Dragon Con this year.
Yes.
He was scheduled to appear, and he went in the hospital, and it's like, oh God, I hope he's going to be okay. Like, we were all crossing our fingers and praying for him and everything, and it was, and obviously he had to pull out of Dragon Con, but yeah, he was still appearing, and he was still going to appear before his hospital appearance with Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, guys, and that's what I mean. There's so many, countless phone calls. I mean, he's on his way, and I've never worked with somebody at his level who is so humble, so easy to work with. And I mean, he's on his way to the airport. We're having a call. He just landed. We're having a call. Before an appearance, after an appearance. I mean, there's a work ethic there that he was famous for when he was performing inside the ring. That work ethic has stayed with him, and he's carried that through now to the other, this other part of his career. There were times where I would be doing, interviews with him in person. And people are coming up to him, asking for pictures, asking for autographs. This is somebody who is in very exclusive company when you talk about someone who has been at the top of a industry for more than 40 years. There aren't too many people in sports entertainment or professional wrestling who have enjoyed that level of fame and recognition, and it's been so consistent. And we talk about that in the book also because it's something that he's very grateful for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's so wonderful because you love to see that in people where they don't let it go to their heads and they don't take it too seriously. And I know he has to take it seriously because this is his job. This is his livelihood. But the fact that it hasn't gotten to him at this age, that he's still humble and he's still him and he's not afraid to be himself. That's really cool to see.
Yeah. And I think that there's something to the connection that he has had with his fans, which again, you're now talking about more than a 40-year relationship. It's a very powerful connection. It's something, and you can tell, and I saw it in person. It means everything to him, and it means everything to them right back. And, it's something that is very, very special.
Agreed. Because, for whatever reason, in wrestling, it's crazy. But we develop these, connections to wrestlers. We see them on TV every week. We don't know them, but you see that person on TV and you're like, yay, that's my guy or that's my girl. And, you have that deep, powerful connection. So when something happens to them, like what happened with Ric Flair, you're gutted. And, you're sending those thoughts and those prayers and you want to send flowers and everything like that to them to make sure that they know that, hey, yes, you're loved and you're thought of and, we want you to get better. And so
it is. And I think it's a special type of relationship that wrestlers enjoy with their fans on a level that is different than in other forms of sport and entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As long as it's the respectful kind. We're not going to get into the weird kind.
Well, yeah. As long as everybody, keeps things within respectful bounds and no one gets weird. Um, but guys, even that. I mean, one of the things I remember learning from Charlotte was, and we mentioned it in the book that, there was a woman from the, I believe, beginning in the late '80s, early '90s, late '80s. Stalked Rick, and we talk about that in the book, and some of the bizarre things that this woman did, and even to go so far as to break into their home, which I'm not gonna ruin for people who are getting the book, but yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, there are people that unfortunately take things way too far, but it's just not that. Not including that, the relationship with the fans is very special.
Yes, that's what we're going to go with. It's very special. Don't get weird, y'all. Don't get weird.
So, switching gears just a little bit. Remember, everyone, you can get the book. We'll tell you how you win a copy of the book here in a few minutes. But we've talked about the Mae Young Classic. We've had the Dusty Rhodes Classic. We've had the Cruiserweight Classic. You're Mr. WWE Encyclopedia. What type of tournament would you like to see next?
Wow.
You forgot the Brits.
Okay, we had the UK tournament.
Oh man. Well, they've already had the two that I was really big on with the UK and the women. I'll say that because I've had a love and appreciation of Japanese wrestling for much of my life, and I don't even know how many tapes. Mm-hmm. I would love to see something specific to Japanese competitors.
That would be cool. The one I want to see, because we've talked about a lot with Brock and Samoa Joe and stuff, like the big man tournament. Get 16 big guys and just let them beat the crap out of each other.
So almost like not a tough man, but almost like just just let the big guys get in there and brawl.
Yeah, just something like that. Just like big men just beat on each other. Because that's, if you like UFC, that's what you sort of see. It's like, just let big guys be big guys. Not really slow guys like the Great Khali, but athletes. Big athletes. Just let them beat on each other. I think that would be fun.
Khali's athletic in his own way.
In his own way.
I wouldn't mind them, on a variation on a theme for the UK, opening it up to Europe. Because there's so many fantastic European talents. And opening that up just to everybody in Europe, or even, just go continent by continent, do, an Australian tournament. Because, I know a guy that should totally be in it if they ever do Australia.
To that point, I'd love maybe like a European Cup. Mm-hmm. I mean, because there's, between UK, Ireland, Germany, I mean, there is some great wrestling history in those countries. So yeah, I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, that would be fun to see as well. The way things are going, and you've seen the rise of Charlotte, what is one thing you learned from speaking with her for the year and a half that you didn't know, and has it been enjoyable to see her progression from all the stories you heard about her on television?
Well, the things that I didn't know about her were really everything that we talk about in the book as it pertains to her personal life. I mean, I knew, I knew that Ric Flair had a daughter that was a college volleyball player because it got media attention. And when she signed with WWE, that information was part of the media picking up that story. Mm-hmm. But I think her entire upbringing, which I find so fascinating, the connection that she had with her younger brother Reed. I mean, they could almost be twins. They were so close, and the personal the personal trials and tribulations that she shares in the book. is something that's being shared publicly for the first time ever. So, it's just, it took an incredible amount of courage and bravery for her to share that, for Rick to share the things that he shared in the book, and for me now to see all the incredible things that Charlotte has done, and I know that she'll continue to do, is just incredible, because there's not a more deserving person. The talent is there, the natural athleticism and the natural gifts are there, but that doesn't mean that a person is necessarily going to work hard. It doesn't mean that they're going to be dedicated to honing their craft. And I mean, she is an incredible person in every possible way, and an inspiring person, both personally and professionally. So I can't wait to see what else she accomplishes.
Now, we've been teasing this the entire night. We mentioned it last week, but we're going to tell everyone now how you can win a copy, an autographed copy of Second Nature, written with Charlotte, Ric Flair, and our guest, Brian Shields. Every month we do WTR Pick'em. You pick up, then we go to the pay-per-view. That's all you have to do. Pick matches correctly for no mercy. That's it. If you get them all, the best record of them all, you win a signed copy of the book. That simple.
That's awesome. Can I get in on that?
No.
Okay.
I already asked. I already tried. Trust me.
She already tried to get one.
I had to. That sounds really good. I had to ask.
But
you're not the only one. Trust me.
Trust me. You're not the only one. But anyone out there, you can get a copy of the book. That's simple. If you don't win our contest, you can go out on September 19th and pick up your own copy. And I believe there's some sort of signed autograph thing with them as well at Barnes & Noble?
Yeah, so right now, guys, Second Nature is available for pre-order, okay? It's available for pre-order at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, BAM Books, Indie Book, wherever books are sold. But if you pre-order the book through Barnes & Noble or through BAM Books, you get a special signed copy by the Nature Boy and by Charlotte. So I'm including that because, there are some people who really want that extra level of keepsake for this very special dual memoir. And the release date is right around the corner. Second Nature comes out September 19th.
And it's that simple. Tell people how they can follow you on the social media.
Yes, thank you for specifying social media, especially after we talked about the stalker in the book.
Afterwards, we'll give out his home address, his phone number, and everything. You can go out and you can stalk his...
Yeah. Guys, it's always great connecting with members of your audience over the years. They can connect with me on Twitter, Instagram, and my Facebook page. It's at It's Brian Shields, all one word, ITS BRIANSHIELDS.
It's that simple. Follow man, like him on the Facebooks, follow him on the Twitter, the Instagrams, but most importantly, get the book. Second Nature, available September 19th everywhere.